This is. Zhang Yi's eyes narrowed, and a look of disbelief flashed in his eyes. There was no reflection at all on the extremely dark batarang, which was reflected in Zhang Yi's pupils. Looking at this weapon forged from extraordinary materials, Zhang Yi felt uneasy in his heart for no reason. Of course he knew what this thing meant. This is the fear that spreads from the dark alley, the regret lingering in the depths of dreams, and the shadow of justice that hangs over all sins. Both Pietro and Carla fell into silence, and they both cast their eyes on Zhang Yi, who was silent. Although they didn't know what Zhang Yi was thinking, they knew that it was best not to disturb him at this time. There are quite a few people who use bat darts in many multiverses, and the most famous representative among them is undoubtedly Batman. The first time he saw the bat boomerang, Zhang Yi was sure that it was definitely not a replica. In this Marvel universe, there are no Batman comics, so it should be ruled out that someone is imitating other worlds. Superhero. But it is for this reason that the appearance of this bat dart seems extremely strange. It shouldn't be here. At least, not under normal circumstances. Did you find this in the cave? Zhang Yi spoke in a serious tone. Yeah, it's stuck deep into the wall and it looks like it's been there for a while, Kara replied. Maybe it was left by someone who wanted to kill this monster, I'm not sure. Zhang Yi nodded, and then moved his gaze to look at the dried and solidified blood remaining on the dart. Maybe some useful DNA can be extracted from it, and there may be clues to the identity of the owner of this thing. However, Zhang Yi doesn't think this will be useful. If the people who use bat darts really come from other universes, then even with DNA, there is no way to find out his identity. Is it possible that it's Bruce? I remember you said that there is only one Batman in the multiverse, and this thing is obviously left behind by him. Pietro tried to guess. It's not that simple. Zhang Yi shook his head slightly. There is indeed only one Batman, but the one who uses bat darts is the entire Bat family. Zhang Yi can't judge the identity of the other party. Besides, if it was really Batman, do you think this mutant would still be alive today? Bruce Wayne is extremely ruthless to these monsters who have lost their humanity. Is it possible that the unknown Batman has never been beaten? After all, this mutant seems very strong, especially for ordinary people. As Pietro was talking, he was stared at by Zhang Yi and Carla and couldn't continue. I don't know why, Pietro has always looked down on Batman. Maybe it's because the old bat in the Flashpoint world left him with the impression of a drunkard. But Zhang Yi and Kara don't think Batman is that weak. After all, he is the person who drags his old body to completely torture General Zod, even if General Zod is very weak. Okay, but it's possible that Batman is injured, right? If he's injured and unfamiliar with this world, it's possible that he fails, right? Pietro argued. Batman will not take action if he is not absolutely sure. Zhang Yi said in a low voice. This is not because Zhang Yi trusts blindly, but because everyone in the Bat family takes caution as their motto. Maybe they are just ordinary people. They will fall hard because of a missed step, and they will also be attacked by sneak attacks. In a wheelchair. But all difficulties will make them more cautious than before. They will think and reflect on themselves, especially when they come to an unfamiliar environment. If they are not foolproof or are forced to have no choice, they will never put themselves in the situation. Exposed to sunlight. Zhang Yi now understood why Kara was angry. A person using bat darts had appeared here before, but the pest was still alive. This only meant two outcomes. The first is that the guy suspected of being Batman misjudged. He thought he had killed the beast, but in fact he did not. The beast was lucky enough to deceive the other party by pretending to die, and he has carefully survived until now. But this possibility is too low. If the other party is really Batman, then the beast will never be able to escape by feigning death. It is estimated that Batman will divide him into several pieces to ensure that this thing is really dead. At the same time, if the pest survives, then he should know that the lair he lives in is no longer safe. There is a powerful guy outside who already knows the address of his base camp. If the news that he is not dead spreads, then that man will come back every moment to take his life. No matter how stupid and inhuman the beast is, he still has the most basic wisdom. He will not let a guy who can threaten his life wander outside, while he continues to live in the exposed lair calmly. So, there is only one most likely outcome. That is, this guy from another universe who used batarangs has been killed. Even before Zhang Yi and the others came to this world, he had already fallen here due to some unknown dangers. If he and others hadn't come here, then the traces of his presence in this world would have been completely lost in history. No one noticed anymore. Pity. Zhang Yi let out a long sigh. He felt very complicated now. What did you think of? Pietro turned his head slightly. After a pause, Zhang Yi reached out and tapped the batarang gently. The nails collided with the metal and made a crisp sound. Dark green magical energy jumped on the smooth surface, emitting a faint fluorescence in the dim illusion. It's a pity that I can't condense the observer's eye into a magical artifact now. Otherwise, with the observer's eyes that see the world, maybe I can see the identity of the owner of the batarang. The power of the observer's eye is very powerful. It is something that transcends the conventional existence in the Marvel Universe. The ability to see through the nature of space can ignore the barriers of reality, even if the other party is from another world. Under the sight of this eyeball, there is still nothing to hide. But it's not that easy to drive this thing. Zhang Yi can't do it at this time. Maybe he can only complete this step after he replenishes his energy. The appearance of the bat boomerang made Zhang Yi feel a little nervous. The impact of this thing was too great. Not only the identity of the opponent, but the fact that people from the DC universe could come to the Marvel universe was enough for Zhang Yi to take it seriously. Who is he? How did he get here? The most important is it just him? We have learned some knowledge about the multiverse. There are many worlds with superheroes, but for me, there are only two worlds of heroes. One is the world with Kryptonians, and the other is the world without Kryptonians. In this world, events like this across parallel universes should be rare, right? Kara said with a gloomy face. Her genes were engraved with a curiosity for truth exploration. She was a natural scientist, which also made her think more deeply than Pietro on this matter. You are right, this is something that is difficult to happen. Take Barry Allen for example. He controls the speed force, a powerful force that is difficult to observe and control. This allows him to run in the time stream, and even it allows him to achieve things that ordinary people cannot imagine, such as traveling through time or traveling through parallel universes. But Zhang Yi touched his chin and said in a deep voice. But no matter how he travels, he is still acting within the established reality, just like in a warehouse full of sandboxes. Barry Allen is the hamster in the sandbox. Even if he runs out of himself the sandbox he lives in, but it's also in a warehouse. Do you understand? He can't leave the warehouse. I understand, he just has a way to open the door of the sandbox or cage. In other sandboxes, there will be similar him who can do this, but to them, they are just hamsters, no matter what there is no way to leave this warehouse. Pietro said immediately, and then he looked at Carla who was aside. The latter noticed Pietro's gaze, nodded thoughtfully, and took over the conversation. To leave the warehouse, they need the help of higher-level creatures. For example, a person accidentally opened the door of the warehouse, but forgot to close it, leaving a gap. For the hamsters, this is the only way. A way to get out of the warehouse. That's true, but the Flash is a special case, and Barry Allen is a special case among the Flash. He can leave the sandbox, but it doesn't mean he can leave with other hamsters, and this bat boomerang. It doesn't look like the weapon that the Flash usually uses, unless. A speedster with a bat logo printed on his chest flashed in Zhang Yi's mind. But soon, this option was ruled out by Zhang Yi. That guy doesn't have this ability. Even if he did, he would never die in the hands of a harmful beast. After all, if it was that guy, he wouldn't lose his speed just because he came to Marvel. In a sense, that thing came with the speed force. So, it's obvious that if, in a reality that we can't see, something takes those hamsters out of the sandbox and throws them out of the warehouse, it doesn't matter in any world, neither is a good thing, Pietro concluded. Kara nodded too. The most critical issue is that not only do we not know how they got here, but we also don't know when they got here. We can't even determine the number of people. Yes, they are likely to be scattered. For outsiders like them, there is danger everywhere. Pietro said with approval. Everything is possible in this wasteland. I have experienced it and I understand. Pietro and Carla sang together and quickly analyzed the logic of this matter smoothly. Zhang Yi, on the other hand, frowned, his eyes uncertain. What I'm most worried about right now is their damn kindness will cost them their lives. If the person who comes here is Bruce Wayne, then Zhang Yi believes that he will survive with a high probability. Even if the boat capsizes in the gutter, it can only be said that he is unlucky. After all, he is just an ordinary person. At least he resisted. But what if the person here is Barbara? Kate Dick. The story of the farmer and the snake is more than just a story. Can you imagine that when these well-meaning people tried their best to save some people from gangsters here, what waited for them was not the gratitude of the people, but the butcher knife they raised when he was injured, mixed with water. Complex poisons, even. Zhang Yi couldn't think about it anymore. He was used to this desperate world. But, if it's just the Bat family, what if it's not just them? What if, as Pietro suspected, the group of heroes from the DC universe came here and separated because of some unknown secrets? Maybe they have strong fighting power, but just like the Flash can be hit by bullets, the kindness and mercy in their hearts will become their shackles in this world, and the sharp blade hanging above their heads will be at any time. They will all kill themselves. Moreover, the sun of the earth in this world is not an authentic yellow sun. Even Kara cannot exert her full power here, let alone other Kryptonians. When they first arrive in a foreign world and have no friends, when their morality and common sense of the three worlds are broken, everything these outsiders face will threaten their own lives and safety. Fighting outside the local area is extremely dangerous in itself. Zhang, what should we do? Kara asked. Obviously, she began to take this matter seriously, perhaps because of her previous acquaintance with Batman and the Flash. Kara and Pietro had some good feelings for these people from other worlds, and they did not want to collect their bodies. It would be okay if we didn't know about it, but now we know about it. It's not impossible to turn a blind eye. Pietro forced a smile and continued. But the fact that people from that universe came to this world is something worth studying, isn't it? Hearing this, Kara also set her sights on Zhang Yi, waiting for his final answer. After Zhang Yi was silent for a while, he finally smiled slowly, but what this smile pointed to was too intriguing. That I don't care how they came, and I don't care whether they are dead or alive now. For me, ensuring our own safety is the top priority. Besides, we can't judge their specific location. Even if we want to, it's also hopeless to find them, so the plan remains unchanged. Yeah. Pietro and Carla both nodded without any objection. Turning his gaze back to the Batarang, Zhang Yi's eyes were extremely complicated. There are several guys who shouldn't be there in Twilight Wolf's wasteland world. It seems that the next life will not be boring. After all, if it is the guys from DC, no matter who comes here. They are all characters who can't sit still. The evening breeze blew by, bringing with it a fishy smell. Zhang Yi's windbreaker swayed in the wind, and in the cool wind, some of the worries in Zhang Yi's heart also disappeared. Now is not the time to worry about outsiders who shouldn't be here. Zhang Yi put away the batarangs, then shifted his gaze to the unconscious pests on the ground. He didn't know how cowardly this guy was. He was scared to death by Kara and didn't wake up for so long. If he hadn't been able to feel the powerful life energy in his body, Zhang Yi almost thought that this guy had been scared to death. Are you going to start? Do we need to step back? Pietro asked curiously. It's not necessary. This is not a complicated matter, but I really can't be disturbed. Zhang Yi made a decision, and then, clusters of green flames appeared in the air. These fireflies, like will-o'-the-wisps, were burning in the air and floating around Zhang Yi. In Carla and Pietro's vision, these things seemed to be moving according to a certain established route, but when they looked carefully, they could not see any rules at all, as if these flames were proceeding without any logic. Irregular movements. And when they withdrew their attention and watched casually, the feeling of careful and regular action appeared again. Magic depends on talent, I guess. Pietro leaned close to Kara and whispered. No matter how many times I see it, I still think this thing is so amazing. I always wanted to be a wizard because, you know, I learn very quickly. It's not that easy. As you said, magic requires talent. This cannot be understood by having a super brain. John once said that witchcraft and magic originate from imagination and vision. Zhang is very good in this regard. Excellent. Kara said calmly. Pietro nodded solemnly after hearing this. After all, he was able to persist in practicing alone in no man's land for 17 years. This kind of perseverance is not something ordinary people can achieve. At the same time, Zhang Yi is too peculiar. This does not mean that Zhang Yi behaves strangely or talks nonsense. On the contrary, Zhang Yi is an extremely logical thinking person. But for some reason, Pietro always feels that he will not have any difficulties and problems when he is with Zhang Yi. Pressure, as if everything can be solved. Moreover, Zhang Yi has always been very mysterious. He never talks about his past to anyone. It is like he suddenly broke into this world, and he has always been watching these multiverses with a more macroscopic vision. Regarding Zhang Yi's past, Pietro himself was too sensible to delve into it. He firmly believed that Zhang Yi was by no means an ordinary person. Pietro and Carla's whispered exchanges did not disturb Zhang Yi, who was casting spells. At this time, he had already entered the state of casting spells. The fingers of his left hand were still maintained. At the same time, Zhang Yi reached out his right hand and stretched it in the direction of the harmful beast. His fingers were spread out, as if he wanted to grab something from the void. Following this move, the beast's body began to tremble unconsciously for an instant. This trembling was not caused by the beast's own consciousness, but rather seemed to be affected by some strange force that could not be observed with the naked eye. The green flames became brighter, and Zhang Yi also concentrated on the harmful beast. This extension of his will allow Zhang Yi to better discover and seize the life force from the harmful beast's body. With the help of magical energy, Zhang Yi's mental power gradually invaded the spiritual world of the pest, which was protected by a soul curtain and where all the consciousness of the pest gathered. With a thought in Zhang Yi's mind, his powerful mental power instantly broke through the curtain barrier. All kinds of complicated and incomprehensible information filled the pest's spiritual world in the blink of an eye, and at the same time, the transcendent energy in his body was stimulated. His right hand suddenly grasped the air, and the next moment, green fluorescence burst out from the pest's body. Immediately afterwards, a ferocious-looking, translucent rat-headed monster was pulled out from the face of the harmful beast, as if Zhang Yi had ripped out his soul with his bare hands. The scene was extremely spectacular. Hi ha. Zhang Yi opened his mouth slightly and let out an inhuman roar. At this moment, the teeth in Zhang Yi's mouth suddenly lengthened and became sharper, and his pupils also turned blood red at this moment. The shadow of the rat man kept struggling, but under the cover of the dark green flames, his resistance had no effect. He could only be torn closer and closer to Zhang Yi by an unstoppable force. Seeing this scene, Pietro and Carla couldn't help but widen their eyes. This was the first time they had seen such a scene. If they didn't know Zhang Yi well enough, they would definitely think that this was a black man who fell into madness. The magician is making sacrifices to the evil god. In fact, their understanding is not wrong. What Zhang Yi is performing is a very ancient witchcraft or ancient magic. This is an ancient magic that exists in the laws of the ancient gods themselves. It allows the user to devour the energy of other creatures that are weaker than themselves. Feed yourself back. This devouring witchcraft was born before magic was divided into black and white. It is more like the original power of the ancient gods. The big fish eats the small fish and the fittest survive. Only the surviving ancient gods can become more powerful. However, this kind of witchcraft is also very dangerous to use, because when constantly devouring other creatures, the devourer itself will not only obtain the powerful energy, but also be affected by the consciousness of the devoured person. If he cannot hold on firmly, one's own sanity, then it is very likely that he will become a madman. And this is also the fundamental reason why this magic is defined as black magic. As for the creator of this magic, it is the author of the Dark God book, who is known as one of the evil old gods. This is a powerful black magic that he learned from the God Eater who also existed in ancient times. However, this magic is not difficult to use. In other words, among wizards, the upper-level ones have a particularly strong suppression force on the lower-level ones. As long as the ability is strong enough, even ordinary wizards can forcibly seize the magical energy of other wizards. This point has also been shown in Doctor Strange's movies. After Baron Mordo betrayed Karmatage, he has been seizing the magical energy from other wizards in an attempt to subvert the wizard's influence on reality. But in Zhang Yi's memory, the most famous user of this magic was the supreme mage Doctor Strange. In order to change the established time point of Christine's death, Strange in that universe began to learn devouring magic, hoping to gain powerful power by devouring demons from other dimensions to change what happened. And in the end, he failed, and he became the last living thing in that cosmic reality. Thanks to Xiao Zai and Mo Yu Chengxuan for their 10,000 coin reward, and also to other book friends for their monthly support. I will try to update, but my coding is slow. Zhang, are you okay? Pietro cautiously came to Zhang Yi's side. Although Zhang Yi had returned to his human appearance at this time, his mutated animal transformation just now really shocked Pietro. Taking a deep breath, and then slowly exhaling it, Zhang Yi licked his teeth with his tongue, as if savoring the feeling of the sharp teeth just now. After hearing Pietro's words, Zhang Yi turned his head and smiled. Of course I'm fine. On the contrary, I feel great now. This power has been controlled by me. My body has become tougher and my reactions have become more sensitive. This is a feeling I have never experienced before. It's like lying on the bed after taking a hot spring bath, it's very comfortable. After clenching his fist, Zhang Yi could clearly feel the increase in strength in his body, just like upgrading and adding points. The real feeling of this increase in strength was really intoxicating. At the same time, he seemed to have mastered some ability to change. This may be because the target he absorbed and devoured was a rat man. Zhang Yi found that as long as he was willing, his body would react accordingly. For example, the teeth become sharp, the pupils become bloodshot and turn scarlet. At the same time, the nails on both hands will extend at a speed visible to the naked eye, turning into blade-like claws to tear the enemy into pieces. This is a very magical experience. Zhang Yi has never experienced it before. In his previous life, Zhang Yi once imagined what it would be like if his hands could extend three-boned claws like Wolverine. Would it be particularly painful? And now, he has experienced it once. All I can say is, it's not bad. Are you sure? Pietro showed a smile that was uglier than crying. Of course I'm sure. Zhang Yi blinked, and then he saw Kara's worried expression and immediately patted his head. I understand, you are worried about my mental state, right? Zhang Yi, although I don't know what kind of energy method magic is, and I have never been exposed to such a strange energy since I was a child, but believe me, no matter on any planet, this method of capturing energy from other people will neither is a good thing. Kara said slowly. I know what you are worried about, and I also understand this. Believe me, I understand the dangers caused by this kind of thing better than you do, because there are many lessons learned from the past in my memory. Zhang Yi smiled and tapped his temple, then continued. The result of forcibly seizing other people's energy is that the hidden dangers of other people are integrated into one's own body. In severe cases, it will even be affected by the absorbed soul, and even the sanity will disappear and fall into extreme madness and chaos. The reason why I use this witchcraft is because I have experienced similar things before. The energy transmitted to me by Mephisto and the Beholder is not pure. Can you understand this? These two hearts, this guy has countless demon souls mixed into his energy. When he said this, Zhang Yi couldn't help but smile. He thought back to the time when he almost got tricked even though he was very cautious. Fortunately, my energy conversion is completed through the time controller, which is like installing a transformer on the electromechanical circuit. Those souls filled with countless chaos, distortion, and darkness are filtered by the time controller before they get close to me. Became information fragments. Although these fragments were also full of all kinds of negative energy, for me at that time, they were nothing to worry about. And Zhang Yi couldn't imagine how his spirit would be affected if he was affected by so many demon souls from the border of hell. I'm afraid that by that time, I will no longer be myself, and that entire timeline, as well as all the energy in my body, will become nutrients in the limbo dimension, feeding back to Mephisto and the Beholder. In the field. Sure enough, you still can't underestimate anyone, especially those powerful beings who have lived for who knows how many years. After reaching that level, what Zhang Yi faces is no longer a childish scenario like the language trap. The people in power who really control the power and strategy disdain to use conspiracy, because for them, it is too simple and too boring. After controlling the changes in people's hearts, they will only use conspiracy. The purpose is to give you no other choice but to choose any one of the results he gives you. When the rules are in their favor, then play the rules. When the reality is in their favor, then play the reality. If both the rules and reality are in a situation that is not good for them, then they will play you. However, this experience gave Zhang Yi a lot of inspiration. Now he can master the wonderful use of swallowing magic. Although he is still unable to reach the level of swallowing ancient gods, it is still very easy to swallow a genetically modified product. At the same time, he will not be affected by the opponent's soul and reason. This is completely the biming magic in the magic world. However, Zhang Yi digests it slower than a professional dark wizard. From the beginning, Zhang Yi didn't pay attention to harmful beasts, because this kind of monster that only dared to hunt ordinary people could not charge the time controller much, not even 1%. So instead of wasting energy on the time controller, it is better to let yourself devour and digest it so that you can become stronger. Zhang Yi's goal is not high. He just wants to be strong enough to protect Pietro and Carla. That's all. The energy of the harmful beast can strengthen Zhang Yi's physical strength. Although the improvement will not be too great, it is a real enhancement. At least now he will not be suppressed by the opponent's melee combat when facing Eagle Eye. In short, this is it. I will not be affected by the devoured ones. Of course, I will not turn into some kind of monster that is neither human nor ghost, or sink into a person who kills innocent people indiscriminately and forcibly takes away other extraordinary beings. Criminals of energy. Zhang Yi was very calm, facing Pietro and Carla, spreading his hands and smiling. It's best that way. I can hear that you didn't lie or hide anything. Kara stepped forward and said seriously. But if you do become like that, trust me, I will stop you. But it seems that I won't give you this opportunity. Zhang Yi and Carla looked at each other and smiled, and the next moment, Zhang Yi stretched out his arms and embraced Pietro and Carla on the left and right respectively. It's time to go, we've wasted a lot of time. As the figures of the three people disappeared into the night, the cliff returned to deathly silence. The shriveled corpse of the beast lay quietly on the hill piled with white bones, without any trace of life anymore. It is foreseeable that in the future this place will be full of trees and luxuriant grass. Please, stop fighting. Inside the amusement park in Arcade, Nevada. It hurts. Please stop. I'm just working here. On the wall next to it, the words, photo taken here with the evil Captain America, have already been splattered with blood. The young actors please received no response. The children didn't think there was anything wrong with their behavior at all, and they didn't care who the man in Captain America's uniform was. They only knew one thing, and that was that if they hit them harder than others, it meant that make yourself stronger. None of the surrounding people offered a helping hand. On the contrary, they watched this scene with interest and sneered from time to time. This is a rich area in the wasteland world. Only those with capable and powerful families can afford to take their children and family to visit the amusement park here in their free time. They are different from the savages who live in the barren mountains. They consider themselves to be superior beings, and they don't care who the poor child is being beaten by a group, because in their eyes, all you earn is the beating. Beat money. Among the crowd, an old man hidden under his robe was silently watching this scene. He is Hawkeye Barton, and he is suffering inside at the moment. He didn't know how to express his current thoughts. To be honest, he didn't know what he was thinking now. He just felt that his head was in a mess, and the figures of Rogers, Stark, and Fury were in his mind one by one. After the stroke, Barton closed his eyes and sighed lonely. Can't stand it anymore, can you? At this moment, an old voice came from behind him. Barton was slightly startled, then turned around and looked towards the source of the voice. It was a woman with an eye patch, who looked to be in her 60s or 70s. She was sitting at the door of a huge tent. It could be seen from the sign that she was a staff member here, specializing in entertaining and divination for tourists. "Madam, you'd better take off your blindfold before you say, look. Looking at this woman who was disturbing him and a bit strange, old Barton replied with a smile. The old woman didn't seem to notice Hawkeye's stiff emotions, she just spoke calmly. "Sorry, see, is just my idiom, but I think we will have some common language soon, right, Mr. Barton?" Hearing this, a cold light suddenly flashed across old Barton's eyes, and at the same time, a strong killing intent emitted from his body. He knows how dangerous his identity is. If the Red Skull knows that an Avengers member is still alive under his nose, there will be endless pursuit waiting for him. Although Eagle Eye is not afraid of death, he still has important things to do. Moreover, that common topic. This old blind man actually knew that he had glaucoma and would become blind like her in a short time. "Ma'am, have we met before?" Old Barton spoke. He stared at the blind woman in front of him, frantically searching for information about this woman in his mind, but he could not recall any impressions. "Please come with me." There was no expression on the woman's face. She did not answer Barton's question. Instead, she turned around and entered the tent as she spoke. Seeing this, Eagle Eye narrowed his eyes slightly and struggled for a while. Finally, he raised his steps and kept up with the blind woman. He was really curious. "Thank you for your visit. Although you didn't come to see me, you came to settle your old grudges, but your arrival still reminds me of the good times back then." The blind woman said to herself. Do we know each other?" Eagle Eye's first reaction was whether this woman might be his love debt from back then, but he quickly realized that this should be impossible. "We haven't really met, but I have studied courses about you in school. You are a very good man, brave and fearless, even when facing Thanos. You're almost confusing me. What kind of school will study my courses? That's all the tasks I perform." Hawkeye interrupted the blind woman's words directly, but soon he couldn't continue, because a name suddenly flashed in his mind. "Are you from the X-Men?" Old Barton's eyes suddenly widened, his lips trembled slightly, and he asked uncertainly. "Blind sight. I haven't used this name for a long time. In today's world, for our own safety, it is best not to use these old names." The blind woman pulled the corners of her mouth upward slightly, as if she wanted to show a smile, but her cold face all year round made it almost impossible for her to smile. "You can call me Ruth." Staring at Ruth blankly, old Barton took a long time to react. He really couldn't believe that except for himself and Logan, those heroes from back then were actually alive. What happened back then? "I thought you guys." Barton had difficulty breathing. "They're all gone," Ruth said softly. "My ability is to predict the future, but at that time, I couldn't control this great ability. It just happened without any warning." "So you survived by relying on your abilities? Then you should know Logan. I can take you to him. Believe me, he will definitely be very happy if he sees you." Hearing Barton's words, Ruth shook her head slightly. "Sorry, sir, I'm not going to help you convince Logan to extend his claws again, that's not my job." "What? What mission?" Old Barton was not embarrassed because the other party revealed his purpose. On the contrary, he frowned listening to Ruth's words. Ruth didn't answer, but let out a long sigh. "The future has changed, Mr. Barton. You were originally walking on a bloody road, but now, the future has changed in front of a powerful force. Everything will become a part of the catastrophe, and everything about your future has become obscure. That's not a level I can see. I can't even be sure whether the world will be destroyed in this catastrophe." "It doesn't matter," Barton said. "I don't know what you're talking about, but the world itself can't get any worse, can it?" "Oops, Ashley, are you really going to abandon us and go find that maniac who uses magic?" Outside Hammerfell City, in a long-abandoned warehouse, two young adult boys stared at Ashley with disbelief on their faces. They had not calmed down from what the other said just now. "He's not crazy," Ashley replied calmly. "He is my prey. I can feel his power, which is more powerful than anyone else. If I can kill him, or get his ability, then I can overthrow the rule of Kingpin too, let everyone live a better life." After coming into contact with Zhang Yi, Ashley has been restless for a while. She can't sleep late at night. She usually gets distracted when she goes to fight with other gangs with her companions. She just feels that no matter what she does, the guy wearing the beak mask can never be forgotten in my mind. No one can hurt her so easily, not even her father. From childhood to adulthood, those who hurt her will eventually be defeated by herself. This is unquestionable, and this is what Ashley has always believed in. She knows how much potential she has. After all, she has the blood of the strong flowing through her body. However, it has been different since that person appeared. She wants that guy to pay. Ashley didn't know why. Every time she thought about the way that person looked at her, Ashley would instantly fall into anger. It was an unreasonable anger that made her want to vent her anger by destroying everything around her. Those eyes Ashley will never forget. The look in his eyes was so bland and disgusting, as if that guy had never regarded himself as an equal to talk to. In fact, if he hadn't taken the initiative to speak, the guy might have simply ignored his existence. Even Ultron 8 will receive his recognition and courtesy. But to yourself, but only to yourself. Ashley only felt that she had received a huge insult. The most irritating thing in the world was not being insulted or beaten, but the feeling of being ignored. That guy didn't take himself seriously from the beginning. No one could treat him like that, as if he were looking at weeds and wildflowers, as if he was just an unknown little character. The most important thing is that he knows his secret, he knows who he is, and he knows how powerful he is. But even so, he still ignored himself, he still didn't care, he still regarded himself as a wild dog on the roadside. At the thought of this, Ashley couldn't control her trembling hands. I will make him look at me before he dies. Ashley gritted her teeth and then suppressed the anger in her heart and continued. But before that, Harry, run, you two just stay here and wait for me to come back. To be honest, Ashley, if that guy is really as powerful as you said and can make your father unable to resist at all, then I don't think you will be his opponent. Known as Harry. The young man spread his hands. Although both boys are older than Ashley, Ashley is obviously more powerful and ambitious. That's not my father. Ashley retorted. But you said that he was an Avenger when he was young, didn't you? If he is not even the enemy of that guy, then if you challenge him, there is no difference between you and death. Ren also agreed. Listening to what her two best companions said, Ashley didn't say anything immediately. She just jumped up, flipped somersaults in the air and jumped onto the rafter. I'm different from that old guy. Do you understand? My grandfather is Spider-Man. He once defeated 6 super criminals by himself, and it was one of these 6 super criminals who destroyed the X-Men. What this represents is, do you understand the meaning? Ren and Harry looked at each other, and then looked at Ashley. To be honest, Ashley, although I don't know what happened in that battle, your calculation is wrong. I admit that your grandpa is very powerful. He can fight 6 super criminals, but I don't think so. Your grandpa can destroy the X-Men together. That's because he has a kind heart. Do you understand? He has this ability. Ashley jumped down and landed lightly in front of Harry and Ren, arguing with reason. You can't imagine what kind of power this is. I haven't fully awakened this superpower, but I can still hear the buzzing sound of flying mosquitoes 100 meters away. I can even dodge bullets at close range. Having said this, Ashley stretched out her hand, pointed at the huge skull on Ren's clothes, and said. Tell me, Ren, what does this symbol mean and who does it come from? Hearing this, Ren was stunned for a moment, then he considered his words before speaking slowly. This is the Punisher's battle uniform, or it's not even a battle uniform, it's just a t-shirt that can be bought for 60 cents. It is the Punisher's legacy and represents the courage of ordinary humans to challenge the extraordinary. To avenge sin, as long as you are guilty, you must die. Very good. Ashley nodded, then looked at Harry next to her. It's your turn. The 2 horns on your head are not Halloween decorations. Say it, Harry. Ashley, this isn't even. I want you to say it. Ashley stared at Harry and said word by word. Ugh, Harry sighed and then said. This is Daredevil's suit. It represents the rule of law. We must use laws and rules to restrict people's behavior and use it to let people live a better life. That's it. Ashley shouted sweetly. Not everyone is worthy of following my footsteps. Do you know why I chose you? Because of your qualities, Punisher, Daredevil, and my grandfather. They were the best comrades and the most perfect team back then, I need you to believe me. Ren and Harry fell silent, they wanted to say something, but they knew Ashley wouldn't listen. I'll kill that man when I get back. Ashley spoke slowly, her voice soft but unmistakable. But what the 3 teenagers didn't know was that at this moment, just outside the warehouse, a pair of bloodless pale eyes were staring at them. Aha! The dark, ink-like living mucus surged crazily. I feel a familiar atmosphere. The fangs and sharp teeth slowly opened. That it's a spider. I still remember him. I still remember his smell. A rustling sound filled the air. She has great potential, that's what I'm looking for.